The air in the X-Mansion common room was thick with a tension that felt almost palpable, a stark contrast to the usual warmth of the late afternoon light filtering through the stained glass windows. Gambit stood, leaning against the doorway, his posture rigid, a flicker of something volatile in his usually playful eyes. Across the room, Rogue sat on the edge of a sofa, her shoulders hunched, a familiar stubbornness etched into her expression, but beneath it, a raw hurt. Their argument had started over something trivial, a misplaced deck of cards, a forgotten chore, but it had quickly escalated, each word hitting harder, each inflection carrying a weight of unspoken grievances that seemed to magnify with every breath. Gambit's voice, usually a smooth purr, was edged with a frustration that felt alien, almost cruel. He spoke of her perceived distance, her independent streak, not with understanding, but with a biting accusation that she always kept him at arm's length. Rogue, in turn, lashed out, feeling attacked, accusing him of suffocating her, of never trusting her to stand on her own. It was more than just a bad fight. It was as if their deepest, most buried insecurities were being yanked to the surface, amplified, and thrown back at each other with unnerving precision. A cold, unseen presence in the room seemed to feed on their rising anger, subtly twisting their perceptions, making understanding impossible. This was the silent work of the Golgotha, a psychic parasite that preyed on emotional turmoil, turning minor discord into monumental rifts. Under its influence, Gambit's frustration wasn't just frustration, it was a roaring furnace of perceived betrayal. And Rogue's hurt wasn't just hurt, it was a vast, echoing chasm of abandonment. Finally, with a particularly sharp and hurtful comment from Gambit, a silence fell, heavy and final. He turned and walked away, the door closing with a soft click that resonated like a thunderclap in the sudden quiet. Rogue remained on the sofa, feeling utterly alone, utterly misunderstood. The Golgotha's insidious touch intensified her pain, making her believe that Gambit truly meant those cruel words, that their love was fragile, perhaps even broken beyond repair. She felt a profound isolation, a yearning for comfort that bordered on desperation. It was in this moment of extreme vulnerability that Wolverine entered the common room, drawn perhaps by the lingering echoes of the argument, or simply by chance. He saw Rogue's distress, the silent tears tracing paths down her cheeks, and without a word, he simply sat beside her. There was a quiet strength in his presence, a steady, unyielding comfort that, in her heightened emotional state, felt like a lifeline. He didn't offer platitudes or solutions, just a shared silence. And then, driven by a raw, unthinking need for solace, a desperate reaching out in the face of immense pain, Rogue leaned in and kissed him. It was a fleeting moment, born not of affection, but of a profound, manipulated agony and a yearning for any connection that might momentarily quell the overwhelming ache. But a moment, however brief or misguided, can have colossal consequences. Gambit, drawn back by a lingering sense of unease, saw it. He saw the kiss. And in that instant, the Golgotha's grip on him became absolute. The frustration, the hurt, the accusations, they all coalesced into a blinding, all-consuming fury. His mind, under the alien's relentless prodding, twisted the image into the ultimate act of betrayal, a deliberate dagger plunged into his heart. He roared, a sound of pure agony and rage, and stormed away, the chasm between them now seemingly impassable. For days, the X-Mansion felt like a battleground of icy stares and whispered accusations, though the true enemy remained unseen. Gambit and Rogue, both consumed by their amplified emotions, found themselves locked in a cycle of mutual recrimination, each word a further blow, each silence a deepening wound. Their friends watched on, helpless and concerned, sensing that something was fundamentally wrong, that this wasn't just a lover's quarrel. The intensity, the utter lack of reason was disturbing. It was Professor X, with his unparalleled telepathic sensitivity, who finally detected the invasive presence. A subtle, non-native psychic resonance, feeding on the negative emotional energy that permeated the mansion. He quickly located the source, the Golgotha, a creature from the darkest corners of space, a parasitic entity that thrived on chaos and discord, turning hearts against each other for its own sustenance. Once located, its influence was swiftly nullified, its hold broken. And then, as if a thick fog had suddenly lifted, clarity dawned. For both Gambit and Rogue, the wave of intense emotion receded, replaced by a horrifying, sickening realization. The sharp edge of their anger, the blinding light of betrayal, dimmed, revealing the ugly truth of manipulation. The words they had spoken, the pain they had inflicted, the desperate kiss, all had been influenced, amplified, and twisted by an external force. The raw regret was immediate, overwhelming. The path to reconciliation was not an easy one. It began with an agonizing, honest conversation, not in anger, but in a shared sorrow and confusion. Rogue explained the desperate, suffocating pain she felt, the distorted reality that had led to her moment of weakness. Gambit, his own fury now replaced by a chilling understanding of how utterly he had been controlled, listened, and then confessed his own torment, the belief that his greatest fear had come true. It was a difficult unraveling, acknowledging the raw hurt that remained, the shame and the violation of their trust, not by each other's intent, but by a cunning, unseen enemy. They found their way back to each other, not through forgetting, but through understanding. The incident became a stark, brutal reminder of how truly vulnerable their emotional landscapes could be, how external forces could prey on their deepest insecurities and amplify them into devastating rifts. It was a poignant lesson in trust, not just trusting each other, but trusting their shared reality and the importance of open, honest communication, even when under the most unimaginable pressures, even when a mind-altering space creature is whispering poison in your ear. Their love, though tested and scarred, ultimately proved resilient, strengthened by the harrowing experience and a renewed commitment to facing any challenge, seen or unseen, together. This story of Gambit and Rogue, entangled by a Golgotha's deceit, is a powerful reminder of how easily our emotions can be exploited, and how crucial it is to truly communicate, to listen, and to trust, especially when the world feels like it's pulling you apart. What are your thoughts on their difficult journey? Have you ever felt your emotions were being manipulated, or faced a challenge that truly tested the trust in a relationship? Share your reflections in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, please like this video and consider following for more tales of resilience and reflection.